Most roguelikes are actually two games. The first game is the most obvious. It's the hand-to-hand gameplay. It's the part you get the tutorial for. Balatro is different from Hades because in Balatro you're playing poker hands in a casino hell, and in Hades you're hack and slashing through an isometric Greek hell. In my game, Disinherited, you're throwing, catching, and parrying your way through a Victorian hell. And I'm starting to see another pattern here, but that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is the second game, the build. What upgrades do you get along the way, and how do you manage them? The way a roguelike offers you and makes you choose between these power-ups and builds tends to give it its unique strategy feel, even in games with really similar hand-to-hand gameplay. But as it stood, Disinherited had quite a ways to go on that front. So before I go over the problems and the solutions I've been working on, let me explain how the power-up system works right now in Disinherited, for those who don't know. In Disinherited, there are two types of power-ups, beads and relics. Prayer beads come in 9 flavors. I think it's 9, right? Okay, yep, I was right. Prayer beads come in 9 flavors and each one boosts a certain stat, whether that's your bash damage or giving you an extra air jump or deciding how much lantern oil you find. Beads get scattered all over the exploration area and they serve as a reward for covering more ground. The relics give you more impactful and unique effects, often crossing 2 mechanics or maybe changing the way you move. You can get them by doing slightly more difficult challenges or in the shops that appear occasionally or as rewards for bosses. The other mechanic that's involved here is the bead trader, also known as Jeff if you're in the Lighthoof and Friends Discord. They've been around since the first few weeks of development. What happens right now is you offer them 2 beads and they offer you one that matches one of yours. The idea behind this was to help focus your build. But in my opinion, there's been a game design problem with this system up to this point. Really, it's a lack of design problem. Right now, you basically want to get every relic you can get your hands on. Yeah, there are moments where you're presented with a choice, or you might not be able to afford both relics that are in a shop, but really the answer to do I want this relic is always yes, which is not an interesting choice. At the end of a long run, you would just end up with a pile of whatever the RNG hands you. And the situation is even worse with beads. Apart from some interventions trading with Jeff, by the end you're gonna have a functionally random stack of power-ups rather than a curated build. So my solution, or my first attempt at one, is to make you choose. I'm starting by limiting the number of relics you can equip. At first, I thought it might be interesting to restrict them based on body slots. For example, it makes sense that you wouldn't be able to wear 2 pairs of shoes. But by making certain relics mutually exclusive from each other, you're cutting into the possibility space of creating synergies, which I don't want to do. And 5 seems like a reasonable limit for relics right now. With beads, I wanted to create more interesting reasons to go after certain ones. Now this idea came to me pretty slowly, and I need to still test it, but here it is. Rather than having one string of beads that keeps getting longer and longer, you need to attach the bead to your equipped relics for the beads to take effect. Each relic comes with a base amount of bead slots. From a game design perspective, this solves a lot of problems and opens up opportunities too. First, it's going to make you, the player, think more actively about which bead bonuses you want, without me having to harshly limit the number of beads that you're offered. Second, it gives me an additional way to balance relics. If a relic seems weak, don't worry, it has a ton of bead slots. Third, it integrates the 2 parts of the upgrade system in a more overt way. And last, it creates the most exciting opportunity yet. Because the beads won't just be activated by the relic, the beads will also empower the relic that they're equipped to. You'll find that certain relics harmonize with certain beads, and with the right setup, they'll be able to transform into new relics. With the help of a new character! This is the Polisher. The name and the silhouette idea came from my friend Cordelia, who I should have banned from making character suggestions a long time ago. I won't tell you very much about him, but you'll know from the start that he's laser focused on attaining perfection. When you bring him a properly kitted relic, he'll offer to polish it into a new form for you. And even if you don't, he might give you some clues. Either way, you'll be able to buy additional bead slots for your relics from him to make your precious treasures shine even brighter. Let's talk for a sec about the implementation here, because I know you're all interested. Making these new features happen basically involved me gutting half the scripts in the game. Maybe not that many, but a lot. And it's the main reason I didn't do it earlier. Up to this point, I'd been keeping everything very simple. There was one script called active player data that knew about all the stats and modifiers and items that the player had. Each item is a scriptable object, which you can kind of think of as a row in a spreadsheet. It has the item's name in one column, a picture of it in the next one, a list of the modifiers, and then a bunch of checkboxes to say where it can appear and what kind of item it is. But if you're going to make the ability to modify these, you don't want to modify the spreadsheet that's telling it what it is at its core. You need something that can create a temporary object based off of that information, and then modify it as the game progresses. Since the item datas are now wrapped in this sort of more versatile, shapeshifty sort of object, every script that used the old version of items is now going to be confused or mad. And since items have had such a huge impact on the game, from the bead trader to the shops to the exploration areas to the player's stats, things got really complicated. And then there's a real final boss, UI. I have to communicate all this information to you via the game, and then I have to give you the functionality in the UI to equip, throw away, replace items. What I came up with now is the most basic version I could muster. It's not fun or flashy yet. I just need to prototype this new system and see if it's better. I really think it will be though. But one larger UI improvement I've made is to these description boxes. The items have pretty much always had these themes, kind of like families of effects. Stuff like catching and throwing, or bashing, or treasure, or whatever. But other than the color, they weren't explicitly labeled anywhere. But now that's going to be more important as I create relic and bead synergies. I added a new text area to the box that explicitly lists the theme or themes, and then I designed these icons that graphically reinforce the information. I also finally separated the flavor text from the mechanical description of the items, because that part is going to need to become modular now. After a week of programming and debugging and UI creating, everything actually works now. And if it doesn't, I don't want to know. Thank you so much for watching, and a big thank you to all of my channel members, especially in the Ascended Lighthoof tier, Emil Skov and Yoji, and in the Reaper Council level, Ajhavok. I appreciate you all so much. Have a fulfilling and uplifting day, and I will see you in the next one.